Hi, hello, it's Shea with Party Select, and it is my duty, honor, and privilege to bring to you my top 10 video games of 2025. I think overall this year is definitely going to go down as one of the great years in gaming with tons of huge, amazing gaming experiences. But oddly, a lot of those big games, things like Death Stranding 2, Hollow Knight Silksong, are just games that aren't really made for me. So instead, I think on my top 10, you're going to find a good variety of those big tentpole AAA experiences, and also some smaller, weirder indie games, and in particular, games representing genres that aren't normally things that I would be super into. So I'm really excited about this year. Let's go ahead and dive in. Before we jump into the top 10, I have to shout out a few quick games just because there were so many things that came out this year that I really want to celebrate. The first is PokePath Tower Defense. We talked a lot about this on our Party Select Top 5 collective deliberations. Check it out before Nintendo sues it out of existence. It's a free browser-based or downloadable tower defense game with Pokemon wrapping. I have it running in the background of my computer right now as I record this. It's very fun. The second is the Oblivion remaster that came out earlier this year that I feel like kind of got forgotten in the grand scheme of amazing things that came out this year. I had to intentionally put this game away to focus on other new stuff, and I fully intend to go back to it in 2026 and get the Platinum Trophy. And then lastly is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I just fell off of it after about a dozen hours. I was loving a lot of what it was doing from a writing and character and story perspective, but found myself kind of overwhelmed by its crazy systems. And I'm very confident that had I stuck with it, it would be a strong contender for my game of the year. I just didn't, unfortunately. So wanted to at least shout it out because I know a lot of you guys probably love that game too. But honorable mentions out of the way, let's get into the actual top 10. Number 10, Split Fiction. Split Fiction was absolutely my favorite co-op gaming experience of 2025. My wife and I decided to play it together. She's not a huge gamer. She plays a lot of Stardew Valley on her Switch, but she generally has struggled with 3D movement in games. So we were both a little bit nervous to try out Split Fiction, but the sort of fantasy and sci-fi combination, we were looking for something to do together that was beyond just watching TV shows and movies. And we ended up having a really great time with it. I think the game does a phenomenal job balancing the fun between both players with super inventive different things to do throughout the game. I do think the game is let down in a lot of ways by its writing, which is pretty cringe and hacky. But if you can look past that stuff or treat it as a jokey storyline and really just get into the gameplay and into the lore and world, I think you'll have a really good time with it. Number 9, South of Midnight. I think Kyle said it best on our Party Select Top 5 deliberations that South of Midnight is an important game. It shows a culture and a history and a people that aren't seen a lot in media, much less in video games. And it tackles really heady themes around guilt and grief and overcoming the sins of your past. Again, things that we don't see often in video games, at least not told in a mature way. I think overall, the video game parts of South of Midnight aren't the strongest, right? Its combat overstays its welcome a little bit. Its level design and platforming and exploration are kind of simplistic. But when the story is told as well as South of Midnight's is, and when it resonates as much as it does with me, I can look past some gameplay deficiencies for an emotional learning experience that I might get out of a game. But I think the biggest thing that sold me on South of Midnight in my top 10 is its music. It's got this amazing blues vibe with banjos and fiddles and trombones and tubas, but also awesome lyricism that expands the lore and helps tell the story as you're exploring and doing some of those more gameplay 101 things. And really more than the sum of its parts is South of Midnight into being a memorable experience for me. Number 8, Skate Story. Man, if there was a category that I was doing for best style, best combination of graphics and music and gameplay flow and sort of state of mind, best vibes, it would be Skate Story for sure. The game looks like nothing I've seen before with its glass-like main character and really creative use of blacks and textures and depth in a game. But it also has a phenomenal soundtrack that was written just for this game, which I also love to listen to outside of the game, and a great sense of flow and speed in its actual skateboarding. Sometimes the open structure and the narrative get in the way of that flow state that you really want, but when the game is clicking and you're on a straight lane doing tricks, kind of going from portal to portal, or you're in a boss battle putting together combos to defeat, the moon or some abstract deity, the vibes, man, they can't be topped. Number 7, The Outer Worlds 2. This is like a rare traditional video game in my top 10 this year. I think coming out of Avowed, which is a game that really, really disappointed me and lacked a lot of what I associate with Obsidian games, I kind of had tempered expectations for The Outer Worlds 2 and expecting just like more of the same from Avowed. And thank God, it feels like they got back on track with this game. It has the snappy writing that you expect, the smart commentary on capitalism and religion and sort of the current state of the world that you would expect from Obsidian, and some smart gameplay tweaks to the first game, which I also really enjoyed. I think the narrative fails in some ways similar to the first game, like the main story isn't sort of the hook point, but a lot of those smaller stories and characters that you meet along the way are extremely memorable. And the most fun things to me were the flaws system that is expanded on from the first game, with tons of gameplay variety and really replayability there. And then the actual decision making and skills that you choose, and sort of forcing you into not being a jack of all trades, which is what I always end up defaulting to, but really being specific about what you're trying to maximize so that you have more options in dialogue, you have more options in combat, you have more options in exploration, and makes it just a really good role-playing, simple RPG. Number 6, Citizen Sleeper 2. Man, it's tough to talk about Citizen Sleeper 2 without spoiling it, which don't worry, I won't do, but it is a difficult game to advocate for and to recommend unless you really know what you're getting into. I think it has the best writing of the year, absolutely. It is extremely mature and really feels more like a choose-your-own-adventure novel, a very adult choose-your-own-adventure novel with some light gameplay interactions than it does a more traditional video game. But its writing is the center point and the strong point, and its characters are so memorable and full of pathos and sadness, and there's this dour sort of cloud over the entire game that really speaks to me, which is maybe something I should discuss in therapy. But I think Seraphin, who's sort of your buddy throughout the course of the game, is one of my favorite characters of the year. And its gameplay systems, while extremely punishing in its randomness and sort of, punishing when you make mistakes or when you push too hard or try to do too many things, the game allows you to overcome those. And so while it can be frustrating at times, it really serves the overall feel and narrative of the game. And man, that ending is definitely going to stick with me for a long time. Number 5, Dispatch. Hey, if you want some really moving character development and interactions sprinkled with some fart jokes and dicks on screen, I got the game for you. It's Dispatch. This is a spiritual, successor to a lot of what Telltale is doing with its episodic model with superhero rapping. I think overall, Robert Robertson, or Mecha Man, the main character, is one of my favorite characters of the year for sure. I think his developing relationships with the Z team of fallen misfit heroes and villains trying to get their lives back on track is really just compelling story and something that I would love to see in a regular cartoon, much less a video game. Its dispatching gameplay offers a nice break between the story and decision-making things that you're doing, and it's fun to sort of combine your characters and send them out on missions and have things go wrong. I do think the gameplay is not as important as its story is, but its story is really, really good and had me hooked from episode to episode, and very impressive to me that a narrative that has a single through line and conclusion to its main plot can have so much variety in choices and have those choices actually bear out to the end of the game. Very, very cool. Number 4, Sword of the Sea. I've been a big fan of everything that Giant Squid has done after they broke out from that game company who had made Journey, and then Giant Squid made Abzu, and then The Pathless, and now Sword of the Sea. Seeing that journey, no pun intended, really makes me feel like Sword of the Sea is their magnum opus and the best version of what this kind of game can do. It has the sand tech and exploration and melancholic plot narrative as Journey. It has the cool underwater and creature designs from Abzu, and it has the free-flowing motion and sense of speed and flow that the Pathless does. But on top of it, it adds this like cool trick system that is superfluous in a way. It's not something you have to engage with, but it makes the exploration so much more fun and less sort of samey throughout the game as you unlock new abilities and different moves that you can do throughout the sand dunes and other places that you're exploring. But more so than anything, again, it's really the culmination of what all of these games excelled at in their past to make sort of the best version of what Giant Squid has done before. And I can't wait to see what that team does next. I hope it's something vastly different. Number 3, The Alters. I'm not really into games like The Alters. The resource management, base building style game isn't really my thing. But The Alters had a great hook. It was this sci-fi guy who lands on a planet and has to work his way out of it through the use of cloning himself and creating these different backstories and jobs for himself to get off this planet. And it was on Game Pass. And so I checked it out one day and fell really, really hard into it. Not being a fan of the genre means I can't speak objectively to its systems and how it compares to other resource management sort of, base building games of this ilk. But it was good for what I wanted out of it. It had the right level of complexity, and it was very cool to modulate and move things around my awesome circular tire base that I had, and the relationship management stuff where you clone these people and they hate you and they're assholes because they didn't exist, and now they feel like they have memories even though they don't actually have memories. Trying to get them to like you just because you want to be a good person, and also it makes them operate more efficiently. The sort of, sinister corporate overlords that are trying to get you to explore and do what they want you to do. It was all really good, vibes in this sort of resource management game. And frankly, it makes me feel like I need to try out other things in the genre. So thanks, The Alters, you maybe opened me up to new types of games. Number 2, Hades 2. I was a huge fan of the first Hades when it came out. Frankly, I've been a huge fan of everything Supergiant has done. But Hades 2, I think, is even better than Hades 1 in pretty much every way. It does have a steeper learning curve, and this game is not easy by any means and was kind of frustrating for me at first, and I wasn't sure how I felt about the combat. The addition of the Omega moves, where you hold down the button to do extra damage and sort of use your mana that Malinois has, was a cool system, but I was a little bit overwhelmed by it at first. The more reliance on ranged-based attacks that she has was kind of hard to get into compared to the simple hack-and-slash nature of Zagreus from the first game. But once you sort of get over that and accept you're going to die 10, 15, 20 times every time you try a new weapon or try a new strategy, you get through that learning curve. And I found the combat systems to be so satisfying. I think Malinois is an amazing character. She has great growth throughout the game. And just when you think you're finally starting to master your trip down into Hades to take on Kronos, like an entire second game opens up that is even more difficult that I'm still ramming my head against. And I don't know, even with God mode turned on because I'm a busy dad, okay, give me a break. I don't know that I'm ever gonna finish the game, but what I've seen so far, man, Supergiant, they can do no wrong. Number 1, Ghost of Yotei. Ghost of Tsushima was my game of the year back in 2020. Ghost of Yotei is my game of the year in 2025. I'm boring, I'm sorry, but it's so awesome. Yotei weirdly feels less special to me personally because Tsushima was such an amazing experience, but I do think pretty much everything in the game has been leveled up in very smart ways by Sucker Punch. The switch from stances to different weapons is an absolute game changer and encourages sort of self-expression through combat in a huge variety of ways. Plus, it's just really cool to unlock new weapons and customize each individual weapon, and the stories around the different masters of each weapon are really compelling. Atsu is a much more interesting character than Jin was. She's incredibly stubborn and reminds me a lot of Joel from The Last of Us in that you root for her even though she's kind of a bad person and she keeps getting in her own way until at the end she finally makes a good decision, even if it's kind of a complicatedly good decision. That arc for her character is one of my favorites of the year for sure. The game also looks unbelievable, which admittedly, like everything Sucker Punch does looks unbelievable. The change to different map design with these smaller, more quantity of zones that you explore, I think is a smart evolution on the 3 huge zones from Tsushima, in that each one can have a little bit more variety and doesn't feel as overwhelming to explore. There's also way more enemy variety, way more options in combat and in exploration and in side activities and in side quests. There's just more without it feeling like Ubisoft open world slop. So yeah, Ghost of Tsushima, it's a very traditional game compared to a lot of the games in my top 10. And it definitely prioritizes iteration over innovation in a lot of ways. But when that iteration is done at the level of success that Yote has, cinema. It's my game of the year. Congratulations. And there you have it. My top 10 games of 2025, alongside a couple honorable mentions because there's just too much cool stuff. I couldn't help myself. Make sure you drop a comment below with your favorite games of 2025. I'd love some recommendations if there are things I haven't played. And be sure to go to the Party Select YouTube channel. You can check out Kyle and Cody's top 10 videos, as well as our collective top 5 deliberations, a Herculean task where we tried to all agree on the 5 best games of 2025. I don't know why we do it, but we do it, and it's fun and leads to maybe some fighting occasionally. But that's going to do it for this. Please subscribe for all the cool stuff we have planned in 2026, and thank you for all your support in 2025. Peace out.